Hi there, I'm very excited to tell you about my new project for the Anglo Concertina. The problem I've had as a teacher over the last few years is that I have two concertinas. I've got a GD and I've got a CG, and the majority of my customers for my tutorials have a CG, but quite a few have GD, and there's probably a few people out there who've got B flat F. How do I cope with the demands of all those different keys? Well, I've come up with a tablature for the concertina. Generally, I teach using musical notation, which is fine, but I've come up with this tablature, which is a kind of a generic tab for all concertinas. The exciting and different thing about this is that I can record one Anglo Concertina tutorial for each tune and simply re-pitch the playing part of that lesson so that it's right for your concertina. So all you need to do is tell me which tuning you have, if you've got a GD or a CG or even a B flat F, and then I can send you the correct tutorial in your key. My speech will not be affected by this because I won't re-pitch my talking, and the timing of the playing will be exactly the same. So it's great, isn't it? I'm going to give you a free tutorial today on the tune Danny Boy, which is just a simple single note melody, and I'm going to show you my new tablature as I do so. My tablature doesn't mention any note names, only buttons and the rows and the fingers and the bellows direction, so it will be a kind of a one size fits all. Obviously there will be purists out there who insist on having musical notation, and I'm sorry, but I won't be doing any more of those type of tutorials because it's just so time consuming having to do 1, 2, maybe 3 tutorials for each tune. So I'm sorry about that, but hopefully you'll really enjoy using my tablature, and I think it makes a lot of sense. The great thing about this, of course, is that you'll be able to hot swap from one concertina to another. So if you own a GD and a CG, you'll be able to play the tune on both those instruments. Where there are problems with different layouts like Wheatstone versus Jeffries, I will always say that in the tutorial. I mean, my concertinas are all Jeffries layout, but where there's a Wheatstone layout issue, I will mention it in the tutorial and I'll provide you with the tablature as long as you tell me that you have that kind of layout. Also, I know there's a lot of people out there that are terrified of reading music or don't understand it or just don't want to be bothered with it, and I fully understand that. I mean, musical notation does give you a whole load of information, everything you could possibly need to know for playing a tune, but I do get that some people just don't want to be bothered with that. So with this tablature, you won't need to worry about musical notation whatsoever. We're still going to be musical with this. We're still going to play with expression and we're going to play in time. But as I say, you won't have to worry about the theory of music at all. Obviously, you're going to need to use the video tutorials alongside reading the tab. They'll go kind of hand in glove, and what you can't pick up off the tab, you'll pick up off the tutorial. So I will show you and you'll be able to listen and watch and pick it all up from there. I think it's a really good way of doing it. You'll also receive an instructional document with your first purchase. So when you buy your first lesson in this style, I'll send you this document which goes into real detail how to understand my new tablature, so you won't have any problems at all, and of course if you do, you can always contact me and I can help you. So like I say, I'm going to be teaching you Danny Boy today, or Londonderry Air, you might know it as that, and like I say, it's just a single note melody line, but it's a great way to find our way around this new tablature. So only single notes today, but my tab can cope with harmonies and chords. And in fact, the last few days I've been working on a few tunes that I haven't taught yet on the internet, using those very things, even triplet quavers. Just in case you're interested, this tablature is based on one that I invented for the English concertina when I first started playing that instrument back in 2015. So I've kind of adapted it and really worked hard at making it work well for the Anglo Concertina. So it's all very exciting. I can't wait to get started. So let's do just that. At the top of the first page of each tune that I teach in this way, I will write down the various keys that you could be playing in, depending upon which Anglo Concertina you own. So this is an Anglo Concertina. I'm not going to tell you which key it's in because that's going to be immaterial because of the fact that I'm going to re-pitch this tutorial for various instruments. I was talking only about Jeffries and Wheatstone layouts. Problems occur in tunes with different layouts, mainly on these 5 buttons here. That's the 5 buttons on the accidental row on the right hand side. They are different for Jeffries and Wheatstone. I will obviously help you with that as we go, but in this tune we don't play the accidental row at all. And also at the top of the first page of every tune I'll let you know whether you can play that tune on a 20 button 2 row or whether you need a 3 row like this instrument. If you have more buttons on your concertina, like a 38 button, you'll still be able to play this, but of course you won't use those extra buttons, and who knows, I may get into doing tablatures for those type of instruments as well. So here is the tablature, and let's get our bearings, shall we? So as you hold your instrument, the vertical row nearest to you, that's this row here, assuming you've got a 3 row instrument, the row nearest to you here I'm calling row number 1, okay? And if you've got a CG instrument, that's the G row. If you've got a GD instrument, that's the D row. Okay, so that's row 1, both sides, okay, nearest to you. Then I go to my middle row, I'm calling that row 2. But of course, if you've got a 20 button instrument, you've only got these 2 rows, rows 1 and 2 as I'm calling them. And the row furthest away from me, the player, I'm calling that by its proper name, the accidental row. We call it that because it has a whole bunch of accidental notes that you don't find in the keys of the 2 main rows, plus a few extra notes as well. Row 1 nearest to you, row 2, next one furthest away, and the one furthest away from you is the accidental row. Notice I'm not talking about keys here, I'm not talking about notes, I'm simply talking about rows, and I will be talking about button numbers in a moment. At the top of the page you can see the button numbers across the top there. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the left hand side, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on the right hand side. So if you want to orientate yourself, just pull the bellows out and just curve them up. Don't go too mad, otherwise you'll damage your instrument. So the way I'm looking at my 2 ends now with the buttons facing up is the way that I'm looking at my tablature. So coming across here on the left hand side I've got buttons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and on the right hand side 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You see? So reading across the top of the page we have the button numbers 1 to 5 on the left hand side, 6 to 10 on the right hand side, and that's the same for all 3 rows. Now there are other methods of numbering the buttons. Some people go 1 to 10 round here and 1 to 10 round here, and then they call this 1 to 5 on the accidentals. I mean, that's fine, but this is the way I do it. It makes more sense to me, and I'm sure everyone's got their own pet method of doing tablature. This is mine, and if you stick with it, I'm sure you're going to find it absolutely fine. I have a lady student who's also a good friend of mine, and I've been working closely with her as I've been developing this, making sure that it's kind of student friendly. She's been finding bits that I might have missed, and so we've collaborated on this together. So thank you, Kathy, for that. Give her a bit of a name check there because she's worked really hard on this with me. So there we are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all 3 rows, and those are your button numbers. Now on the far left hand side of the page you can see the bar numbers. So this bar here is bar 0. It's got 3 little notes in it, and I'll explain how to read those in a moment. It's not the first complete bar. The first complete bar is here, bar number 1. So bar 0 is a pickup bar just with a few notes to lead us into the main tune. So you read the bar numbers, if I just go down the page here, 0, 1, 2, and you can see that at the top of the page here my button numbers and my left and right are staying put. In other words, they are frozen. Scroll down, you still see your button numbers at the top, which is quite useful. If you've got a PDF of it, of course that won't happen. So bar 0, bar 1, bar 2, so those are the bar numbers. And then you've got the counting, 1, 2, 3 and 4 and on the side there, and you read that downwards like you read the bar numbers. Downwards is the key word here, okay, just bear that in mind before we actually get to the meat and potatoes of this. Over here you can see the keys. So if you're playing a CG instrument, this will be in the key of G major. If you're playing a GD instrument, this will be in the key of D major. Counting in 4s. So basically where I've got a little bit of spare real estate like I have over here on the right and here as well, I use that to give you a bit of extra information in text. You've got a thick line and a thin line and 2 dots here. That's my version of a repeat sign, but kind of turned on its side. Just to say that the vertical depth of a bar depends on how many notes there are in it. So This bar here, bar number 1's got quite a lot of notes, and this bar here, bar 18, see, it's not very deep because there's only a couple of notes in it. But remember, all bars have the same amount of beats in them. They have the same value. So in other words, they all last the same amount of time. So don't be fooled by the actual depth of the bar. Obviously, that's commensurate with how many notes there are in the bar. And if you want to get your bearings timing wise, look at where the numbers 1, 2, 3 and 4 fall, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, they can't move, so that's kind of your guide as to the timing. So when we've got notes that don't fall on those on beats, we use the word and. We sometimes use a word but I don't think we need to on this first bit. So you count 1, 2, 3 and 4 and you come in on these 3 notes here as you count and 4 and. But this will make much more sense when I actually get playing. So there's so much chat in this, but I just wanted to explain all this properly before I get going. You can see the name of the tune at the top here, Danny Boy, Anglo Concertina, and it says 20 or 30 buttons. So it means you can play this whether you've got a 2-row or a 3-row. So a lot of people, when they start off, they buy a 2-row, sort of a cheap instrument from Germany or China, and you'll be able to play this tune on that instrument because it actually only uses rows 1 and 2. It doesn't need the accidental row. So if it says 30 button only at the top here, you know that you're in trouble if you've got the 20 button instrument. This word bellows just means that this section here, this kind of blank set of cells here, is representing the bellows between the left and the right side of the instrument. So let's get to the actual notes now. So if you look in the main part of the page underneath the words left and right, you'll see some numbers in cells. Now the contents of each cell, in other words this number, it actually gives you 4 bits of information. First of all, it tells you which button you should play, because if you look up, this cell here is in button 2 column, so you know it's on button 2 on the left hand side, but it doesn't tell you which row, does it? So how do we know what row this note is on? Well, in this tune, most of the notes are on row number 1. So when you see a number written in a cell, just a single number, don't worry about that minus sign for a moment, you know it's going to be on the row number 1, the row nearest to you. Okay, that minus sign means you're going to play that note on the pull, and you'll hear that in a moment. So these first 3 notes are all found on row number 1. If the note is found on row number 2 in this particular piece, you'll see a box round it, like this one. This one is filling up 2 spaces because it's going to last for beat number 2 and half of beat number 3. So I merge cells to extend the sustain length of a note, but this 2 has got a thick black box around it, so you know it's going to be found on the row number 2. That's the row that's least used in this tune. If there were any notes on the accidental row, you'd see a little A next to those, but in this tune there aren't any. Okay? Right, let's go back up to this first section up here. So we know the button we're going to play, button 2 here, button 3 here. This would be button 4, this would be button 5, you see, coming up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we know that all these notes are on row number 1, apart from this one here. And obviously the number itself is the actual finger you're going to use. So you know you're going to use your little finger, 4th finger on this first note. So it's going to be little finger on button number 2 on row number 1. And the minus sign is telling us that we're going to play that note on the pull. We're going to press the button and pull out, and if a number doesn't have that minus sign, you know you're going to play the note, press the button and push in. So minus means pull the bellows out. So quite a bit of information there, isn't there? It's very important to remember that these numbers are the actual finger that you're going to use on that note. Now that may vary from time to time because we've got 5 buttons on each side in each row, but only 4 fingers. So very often we have to kind of reset our fingers. So, you know, finger 1 won't always be used on button 5. It might be used on button 4 sometimes on this side. And on this side, finger 1 won't always be used on button number 6. It might be used on button number 7. See, so we have to be flexible there. Just so you know which finger is which, the index finger is number 1, the middle finger is number 2, the ring finger is number 3, and the little finger or the pinky is number 4. And of course the thumbs aren't used because they're on top there. So how do you read this and play it? Well, you look for your first number, this one here, and it's, like I say, button 2, it's on row number 1, and it's going to be on the pull and its little finger. So it's going to be this note here. Just play this note for you. And that's your first note of the tune. Let's find the next note. So we obviously look on both sides, left and right. There's nothing on the right hand side in this pickup bar. All these cells are empty. So let's find the next one down. It's here. It's button number 3. It's in the button 3 column. So button 3. So count up from the bottom. 1, 2, 3. It's on row number 1. It's on the push because there's no minus sign. And it's finger number 3. Just so happens that the button number and the finger number are the same here, but they won't always be like that. And that note is on the push. Let's play that note for you. And then the last note in this pickup bar is the same button, okay, same row, but it's got a minus sign, so it's played on the pull. So same button I just played but pulled out. So I'm going to play those first 3 notes. And just so you get the timing right, it's 1, 2, 3 and 4 and. So as you count and 4 and, you play those 3 notes. Here we go. Okay, so I'll count in 1, 2, 3. And those are the notes in your pickup bar. So that's bar 0 done. I'm sure you're beginning to get a good idea of it already. Here's bar number 1. Still no notes on the right hand side. Like I said earlier, you've got this thick line and thin line, and it says repeat here from second time through. So if you know anything about musical notation at all, you might know that a repeat sign looks like this, but up the other way. The 2 dots face outwards, but obviously we're reading down the page, so I've had to turn it around. So just bear in mind we're going to come back to this point later on in the tune when we want to repeat. So now we've got bar number 1, and we've got a complete bar of notes starting on beat number 1. Now this number 2, okay, is on button 4, so it's left hand side still, button 4, and it's finger number 2, and it's on the push. And like I said earlier, unless you see a thick black box, a board around a cell, you know all the notes in this tune. It won't be in every tune, but in this tune all those notes are going to be on row number 1, which is the row nearest to you. Just to recap, finger 2, button 4, push, that one there. And you can see that I've extended this, I've merged 2 cells together, so it's going to last for beat 1 and beat 2, half of beat 2, and then this note here is going to come in on the and count. So it's going to be like this. Now, the next note that we see is button number 3, finger number 3 on the pull, and then button number 4, finger number 2 on the push, and then button number 5, finger number 1 on the pull, and then same button pushed, and then button number 4, finger number 2 on the push. Now look at the counting over here. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. Remember the 1, 2, 3, 4 must be equidistant. You can't suddenly go 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4. They can't move. So where we've got notes that don't fall on 1, 2, 3 or 4 on the beat, if you like, we use this word and to get these kind of quicker notes. So the timing here is 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. I'm going to play that whole bar for you now. Here we go. One, 2 and 3 and 4 and. So let's go back to the top here, okay, and we'll play the pickup bar, bar number 0 and bar number 1 together. I'm going to count in with a 3. Pull your bellows out before you start, so you've got plenty of air in them. Don't go too mad, don't put them right out. Something like that is fine. Notice I'm leaning the right cheek of my concertina on my right leg, and the left side is free, but you can reverse that. You can do it on your left leg and have the right side free, whatever works for you. And out of shot here, I've got my right foot on the guitar stool so that my right leg is elevated. So I'm counting with a 3. 1, 2, 3. And that's our pickup bar and our first bar complete. At the end of each bar, you'll see this thick black line. Okay, there was a thick black line and a thin one here because this is a special bar line for the repeat. I'm sure you're getting the idea by now. I'm not going to go through every single bar like this, but I'm sure you're beginning to understand it. Let's do this next bar. So we've got button number 3, finger number 3 on the pull on row number 1, and then you've got the same button pushed, and then you've got this note. It's quite interesting. It's got a thick black box around it, so we know it's going to be on row 2. That's the row that's not used as much as the other row. Okay. In fact, there's only a couple of notes played on this row in this tune, and it's finger number 2, button number 4 on the push. So it's this note here. Okay, and then you've got this one again, button number 3, finger number 3 on the push, button number 4, finger number 2 on the push, and then the same button on the pull. And the counting here, 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. So this note here, the one that was played on row 2, is held for the counts of 2 and 3, and then this note comes in on the and count of 3. So it's 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. So that will sound like this. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. Right, let's move down to bar number 3 here. The first note of bar number 3 is button number 5, finger number 1 on the push, no minor sign, so you know it's on the push, and it's held for beat 1, half of beat 2, just like that note we just played on the other row, and then it comes through in a very even way. So the timing here is 1 and 3 and 4 and. So don't forget to read down. Rows go across, columns come down, don't forget. So as you come down the page, just play each note that you come to, and again, there's nothing on the right hand side. Okay, let's do bar 4. Scroll down to that. I would strongly suggest having this music printed out, by the way, as well as watching it on the screen here. This is bar number 4, and this note here is button 3, finger 3 on the pull, on row 1 of course, and it's held for beats 1, 2 and half of beat 3 before you go to this button number 2, finger number 4 on the pull, and then back to button number 3. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3 and 4 and. That'll sound like this. Okay, 1, 2, 3 and 4 and. I'm going to skip a few bars now. Normally, if this was a full-blown tutorial, I'd go through every single bar, explaining every single note, but I'm going to skip a few bars here because I think you're getting the idea. Let's jump to page 2, and you can see as you come down to bar number 8, you actually finally get a note on the right hand side. So let's explain bar number 8 and bar number 9 in full. So you start on button 3, finger 3, push, held for, well, 2.5 beats really, because it's the whole of beats 1 and 2 and half of beat 3. And then you've got button number 5, finger 1, push, pull, and then finally on the end count of 4 here, you play button number 6, that's the first one down. It's on row number 1 on the pull. It's this note here. That'll be the last note of the bar. So the timing here is 1, 2, 3 and 4 and. Sounds like this. and that's your run up into your next section, isn't it? Bar number 9, it's all ones because you've got button 6 on the right hand side and button 5 on the left hand side. And in this tune, it won't always be the case, but in this tune you use finger 1 for both those buttons. So finger 1 on the right hand side, finger 1 on the left hand side. Now the first note is button number 6, finger number 1, push, and then you play the same button and pull, and then do that again, and then you go over to the left hand side and it's pull, push, pull on this button 5. So it's going to sound like this. Do that again for you. So that's basically it. Let's look down the page if there's anything else to worry about here. It's all very, very straightforward. Go down each page. This was page 2. Let's jump to the final page, page 3, and it gets a little bit more complicated here because when you get to the end of bar 14, it says go to the second time ending second time. Well, this is the first time, so you'll go to the first time ending. So in other words, you'll do bar 14 and then you'll do bars 15 and 16 as your first time ending. When you get to the end of bar 16, you can see that you've got that repeat sign going the other way, thick line, thin line and 2 dots, and it says repeat from the start of bar 1, page 1. So we'll just look back there. So you're going to go back from here, from the beginning of bar 1, not the pickup bar. And then the second time through, like it said, go to second time ending second time. So assume you've done all that. And we now have the second time ending. And this is a little bit interesting because it's got only 3 beats in this bar. So you're going to count it 1 and 2 and 3 and all equal value notes. These notes are all quavers in case you're interested. So bar 17 will sound like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Now in bar 18 you've got this note here which is held for 2 beats and this note here which is held for 2 beats. This is button 5, finger 1 pull. This is button 6, finger 1 pull, and then the final note of the tune is button 6, finger 1 push, and you sustain this note for 7 beats. If I want you to sustain a note for a long while, I often put this what I call the sustain arrow, show you how long it lasts, and it lasts up to the end of beat 3 in bar 20. So if I play the second time ending for you, so here are bars 17, 18, 19 and 20 so that you can see how it all works. Obviously this is a very straightforward piece, but even the more complex pieces work very well. In the next few weeks I'm going to be putting up some more tutorials so that you can see how this idea has been developed. I would just say this, that the tablature is great and it shows you what to play and pretty much where and when to play it, but always listen to me playing, listen to my performance. It's probably worth having my separate performance video up alongside the tutorial video so that you can quickly refer to my performance if you get stuck on a bit of timing, because sometimes you may look at some counting and you might think, well, that's really complicated, how does that go? This is very much a watch, listen and learn method. By the way, I printed my music out and I've trimmed it with a guillotine and I have taped it together so it makes a nice little sort of booklet like that, so it doesn't sprawl all across the music stand or your table. I never play off the computer, I always play it off the actual physical printed copy. I find it much easier, I'm sure you will as well. So here we are, Danny Boy or the Londonderry Air.